You're listening to Living Beyond with Hope. Hey, that's me.
Welcome to the podcast. This podcast is meant to help you realize you're more than a label, and you too can create a life you love despite it. Each week, we bring you tips and inspiring messages to help you take the positive steps in your health that will allow you to live beyond. Now sit back, relax, meal prep, or take a walk as you dig into today's topic with your host, a gal living her life to the fullest with type 1 diabetes, Hope Mangiafico.
Happy 2017. What we're talking about today is relating to starting a new habit because we're all ready to kickstart some rad new habits and how to make it stick. And honestly, this isn't even about starting, New Year's resolutions and just having like little quick fixes and trying like temporarily to make new habits. But for me, I know that my goal for 2017 is to create a lifestyle that reflects who I want to be, and that means getting new habits that are going to work and be effective. So it all starts with habits. And you probably have a lot of habits that you know about. A lot of them you probably don't like, or maybe you've taken a couple of years, a few steps back to reflect and create habits that you've intentionally put in. So it's like you have some habits that kind of stink and they've just kind of happened, and then you have some that you've been really intentional about and you're crushing it. So for me, one of my habits that I'm really proud of, for the most part, it typically sticks, is like morning routine. There are certain things in the mornings that I refuse to go without, and if I mess up or I don't do it, habits out the window. And the thing about habits is that a lot of times, just like brushing your teeth or driving, brush your teeth when you wake up, or at least after you eat breakfast usually. And when you're driving, you have certain routines. You lock the door, and when you're turning, you turn on your turn signal, and you kind of like look left, look right, check your blind spot. Those are habits, right? And the thing about habits is that they're in our subconscious, and they don't happen overnight, good or bad. They take a lot of practice, and they take a lot of mindfulness and making sure that we know what we're doing. It's not a simple process. It starts with wanting and desiring a change and then experiencing some resistance, which means, hey, you're making progress. That's a good thing, to finally conquering it and making it stick. That's the biggest thing. And what's challenging about habits is that they are kind of what we become. If we have habits of sleeping in all the time, then we start to sometimes pick up the typical lazy lifestyle, if you will. So we kind of become our habits, and what we focus on, we find. So for me in the morning, one of my habits is to wake up. Once my feet hit the floor, I stretch, and I'm like, it's gonna be a good day. And that immediately kickstarts a good day. Things happen, but it's one of those habits that I've been really mindful of. And we have to be sure that we understand that it takes a while to make changes. And so there's a few tips that I want to give you today so that you don't start, new habits or a new year or a new quarter, whatever. It doesn't matter when you're starting new habits, but what does matter is that you can stick with them and make them a lifestyle change. So I want to teach you how to create new habits, make them stick, and make you have the best future that you could ever imagine. The first thing is, I want you to focus on one thing at a time. If you're anything like me, you have a lot of things you want to change. You know what I mean? I go through phases where I'm crushing my workouts, and then I go through phases where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to be more intent with my workouts. I need to be more intentional with my eating habits. I need to be more intentional with my quiet time in the mornings. It goes on. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this ideal schedule, and I'm going to crush it. And then I fail at one, and that makes me feel like a failure all around. So for you to make a new habit stick, focus on one thing at a time. It's pretty simple, but you've got to focus on one area the science changes, but for at least 21 days. Anywhere between, this is a bit lengthy, but you want to be flexible and give yourself some slack when some things don't go your way. So anywhere between 21 days and 60 days. I've done programs that do it all, and I personally think it's different for everyone. So you want to make sure that you make enough time to focus on one thing for at least 21 days, if not up to 2 months. So because after 2 months, even on the days that mess up, you're going to get in the habit of changing that one thing. To do that, there's a few little tips and tricks, because you're not just going to say, okay, I'm going to start waking up at 5:30 a.m. Let's do this. It doesn't quite work that way. So you've got to set triggers to make sure that happens. So just say, for example, you're wanting to wake up at 5:30 a.m. Well, setting an alarm will help, but when I first started that, trying to make it a habit, I used my phone. And I would set my alarm and tuck up on my pillow, and that'd be it. Except I was waking up at like 6:30, 7 o'clock, because I could just turn it off, snooze it, whatever. So my trigger was to go old school with an alarm clock and put it across the room, so I had to get up. One of those things you hear and you're like, I don't need to do it. You need to do it. So that was a trigger. And then for maybe changing a habit like working out, like saying I'm going to work out first thing in the morning, a trigger for you would probably be laying out your clothes at the end of your bed, or at a stool or whatever, so you see it, they're ready to go, you have no excuse to get going. Another one would maybe be throughout the day, if you're an entrepreneur, or even if you just want to have a more efficient work day, would be to set an alarm to take a break. It is proven that we are more efficient and effective if we work in intervals and we take breaks, close our eyes, stop looking at the computer screen, and take a breath. And deep breaths, move a little, get some exercise, blood flowing, energy, and life is good. So setting an alarm will help trigger that new habit. So maybe eventually it will become a habit and you don't have to keep using the alarm. Another example would be sticky notes. Okay, so this is not like New Year's resolution type of habit, but it's really epic for me. So I had a really bad habit for a while, taking my dog out and not locking the door. I just want to get her out of her harness and, be done. And I would forget to lock the door. So a trigger that I would use is a sticky note that says, I shut the door. Lock the door, and it would be taped. Yellow, bright sticky note. So I would see it right by where we hang her leash. And so that took freaking forever, but I finally did it. That was a trigger for me to start that habit. So for you, it could be any of these things, but your first step is to figure out what is the one thing that you want to change over the next 21 to 60 days. Make sense? I talk a lot with my hands. I apologize. The next is, depending on what your habit is, if it involves any kind of time frame or your schedule, take the time to plan out your ideal week. So literally having a week, maybe using Google Calendar or making something in Excel, you want to plan what your ideal week looks like so that you can strive for that. If you don't plan ahead or do something like that, or maybe even, I have my balanceplan.com, I help you plan your week of exercise and meal plans. Because if you are able to do that, failing isn't an option. It's a very unlikely option that you're going to fail. And most people want a new habit of exercising, making time for it, and nutrition. So I help you plan your ideal week for nutrition and exercise. Now, you can't go 1 week and expect it to change everything, but you can do a week, print it off again, do the next, print it off again. Keep doing that. That's going to set you up for success and for habits that will stick. So visit mybalanceplan.com. And I tell you how awesome you are throughout that thing. I have an audiobook with it. It's pretty rad. It will remind you that you're capable of this, which kind of leads me up to my next point of your belief. You can only have new habits that will stick if you believe in yourself. This is the hardest thing. It was the hardest thing for me to have belief and recognize that I can do anything, but I have to have a plan and belief that I'm capable. So that audiobook, for example, is one thing where I keep reminding you that you can do this. You're awesome. Let's plan it out. Remember what you're capable of and have belief. It's that simple. It's simple, but each day you have to be intentional with it so it all sticks and plays out. Does that make sense? And as a quick little aha idea moment, I want to go ahead and give you one little tactic besides using mybalanceplan.com. I'm learning how to do this. You can try a strategy that I learned as a kid, and I used to teach this on social media, and I haven't taught it in a while, but I want to challenge you with the chain link challenge. So perhaps stick with one thing you want to change, a habit you want to start. Perhaps it's quitting smoking. Perhaps it's working out in the mornings, or even just getting 30 minutes of exercise in a day, 15 minutes, what have you. And start with a paper chain link on the ceiling. Put a date on it. So say today was my first day that I started exercising on a regular basis. 15 minutes in the morning. Let's be very specific. I put the date. I cut off a little chain link. I tape it or pin it to my ceiling. And then the next day, say I do it again. I put the date, I link it, and it goes all the way to the floor. And your goal here, this could be good. You could try this instead of just setting like arbitrary, like 21 days or 60 days, is when it hits the ground, which means you are pretty freaking awesome because you've freaking reached your goals, your habit that you're trying to change. When it hits the ground, you get some freaking awesome reward. Whatever that looks like for you, it's different for everyone. For me, it's something like I won't Flavor God seasonings because they're kind of expensive and I have yet to invest in them, and I want to invest in them. So something like that. So my new habit is to make sure that every morning I start my morning with prayer because it really sets up my day well. The first morning I do it, I put a date, I tape it, pin it to my ceiling, work all the way down, it hits the ceiling, and then when it hits the ground, I just said hits the ceiling, hits the ground, I would get my Flavor God, which would be so awesome and so yummy. So that's an example, but you have to have a reward that you can taste, like you desire so much that it's enough to motivate you to stick with that habit. We've got to make sure that we start creating new habits, make them stick by focusing on one so that it becomes obviously habitual. So it's ingrained in our subconscious, but to be able to do that, we have to focus on one thing because it takes a while to change that one thing. If we try and do it all at once, it will not be successful because we're not meant to multitask. We're not meant to be perfect. We're meant to focus on one thing at a time. That's how God made us. So you focus on one thing at a time. You set triggers, sticky notes, alarms, laying your clothes out, whatever will trigger that habit for you. You make a plan, so you can use mybalanceplan.com or create a schedule, whatever you want to do, and you believe in yourself. And still that belief in yourself, use support, community, accountability, me. I love cheering people on, and recognize that you can do it. You can do anything. And if you like visuals, try the chain link challenge, and that could be a game changer for you. So make your habits stick. We are not going to our old selves. We are becoming who we desire, what we want to be, who we want to be, and it's the time. It's time to create the life that you want and to be the person that you desire. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It means the world to me to be able to serve you and help you live beyond. If you found today's episode helpful or beneficial or share-worthy, I would love a review in iTunes. A review in iTunes allows me to know what was helpful and allows us together to continue to change lives and help other people live beyond their diagnosis or label. And if you did find this share-worthy or helpful, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. If you're on an Apple device, you can go to the podcast app or the iTunes store and type in Living Beyond with Hope, and there you can subscribe or listen to other episodes. When you subscribe, this allows you to know when there's a new podcast released. If you're on an Android device, no worries, I got you. All you have to do is download the Stitcher app and search for Living Beyond with Hope there and subscribe there. You can also go to www.livingbeyondwithhope.com if you would like to listen to the episode again, if you would like to see the show notes and any links that were mentioned in this episode. Today's episode was also brought to you by my Living Beyond the Label audiobook. If you enjoyed this and you like hanging out with me in your ear, then you would love to get your hands on this audiobook. It helps us together strategize your best and most balanced life. If you want to learn more about it and to get your hands on the audio and the worksheets that go with it, you can go to www.mybalanceplan.com. The link is also in the show notes, and there you'll be able to start strategizing your best life. Have an amazing rest of your day, and remember to keep living beyond.